Hello, everybody. It's time again for the SMC Journal Podcast, the best show in IT, engineering, software engineering on the internet. The best show you're going to find because we make software better today than it was yesterday. We make it more efficient. We make it more secure. We observe it. We test it. We tune it. We do everything here, right? And we're already into August. Where is the year going to? Agent 503 is in full beach mode here, and we are just having a blast. I hope you are too. I'm Scott Moore, your host. Thank you for being with me today. Today's topic is about digital experience monitoring. Now, you may say, hold on a second. Digital experience monitoring, we already know about monitoring. We've had APM solutions. We've got observability platforms. We've got metrics, traces, and logs. Hold it. But if you're not monitoring the end user from their perspective in all ways possible, you're probably going to miss something. And that's actually what I want to talk about today. You may have watched a previous episode of my other show, The Performance Tour, because I know you watch every single video that I'm in every day, and that's your whole life. But in one of those videos, I actually asked somebody, why in 2023 are we still seeing so many problems in production around performance specifically when we've had APM and observability platforms for years? We've had network monitoring. We've had real user monitoring, RUM. We've had synthetic monitoring going on. Why are we still seeing this, what we're terming a visibility gap? That bothers me as a performance engineer who's been in the industry for 30 years looking at this stuff. Well, quite possibly, digital experience monitoring may be the thing that we need to get that true visibility that we need that takes all of this stuff together with the end user experience in mind and tries to determine what is actually going on and what can we do about it. So that's where we bring in my guest today. But before we do, let's talk about the sponsors for this show that make it possible for you to watch. This podcast is sponsored by Saltworks Security. For almost 10 years, Saltworks has delivered world-class application security services and products designed to help enterprises secure their applications from policy to production in an ever-changing security landscape. They're the makers of SaltMiner, an application security management platform designed by security professionals for security professionals. SaltMiner aggregates and normalizes the issues found by many different solutions and enriches that data with business context. SaltMiner gives team members from the C-suite, security, and development teams the ability to manage their application security program through customizable views. The Saltworks SaltMiner Community Edition is a free penetration testing management and delivery application. It provides teams with custom reporting for potentially thousands of end users, red team support, and the ability to manage new and retesting of engagements. SaltMiner Community Edition also allows teams to enforce both testing methodologies and custom vulnerability databases for consistency in engagement delivery. Check them out today at saltworks.io. Thank you once again, sponsors, for doing what you do. So let's go to my guest now, Scott Sumner of Kadiska, who is going to tell us what digital experience monitoring is and how it's going to help us. Hey, Scott, welcome to the SMC Journal Podcast. It's great to have you on the show.
Cool. Thanks, Scott. Always good to be with another Scott on your show.
Yeah. Scots are great. So today's topic is all about digital experience monitoring. And I've actually been talking about this a little bit on the show earlier this year because anything that has to do with looking at the perspective of the end user, what is the actual user seeing? And if they're not having a great experience, I mean, all things are off the table, right? So tell me about you and how you got into digital experience monitoring.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm a CMO at Kadiska, and we're our digital experience monitoring platform. But it's really that came from a very specific origin because a lot of the guys working with me for many, many years were in the NPM and APM space, and we were in the Magic Quadrant in Gartner and living the great life. Sold that company and decided to do something really quite different. So a few years ago, looking at the problems that were out there facing the people we were selling to in the past, a lot of the big enterprises and telcos, what are the kind of things they kept asking us to do with their NPM and APM solutions they just couldn't do, and we couldn't help them with traditional like tapping techniques and those types of approaches. So we invented Kadiska just to purely solve problems that were different, and you couldn't get visibility into because there was kind of like a visibility gap that was really starting to become more difficult with cloud and SaaS-based applications and internet-based networks.
So I'm going to read off this thing about, because you mentioned Gartner. Gartner has actually characterized DEM as a category, and the way they define it is uh, digital experience monitoring from the end user's perspective, whether that's from a machine or whether that's from an actual user, but it's based on their viewpoint, I guess is the way I'm paraphrasing it. But they mentioned that using a digital experience monitoring platform versus traditional APM or observability platform, that it's actually on the rise, that CEOs and the C-level is actually paying more attention to that. And it says that by 2026, 60% of IT leaders will be using DEM to measure their application services and their endpoints, which is way up from 20% in 2021. Why do you think that is?
That's the kind of same kind of vector and kind of pain, right? It's actually the fastest growing sector in IT observability as well, in way Gartner's perspective, anyways. And it's because essentially, when you're looking at private kind of applications in the past or using private networks, it was fairly easy to kind of understand things by doing traffic analysis. That was straightforward, right? Most people were on site or in a manufacturing location or in a store or wherever they were. They weren't too distributed, and the applications were hosted in a data center. They're like 3-tier applications. So it was kind of straightforward to see where things were going. But the problem today is that you and I probably, well, I know you're pretty mobile, like you're all over the country.
That's right.
Kadiska it doesn't have an office, right? We basically have a WeWork. We have people all over the place, and this is what happens when you get into these modern companies or people embracing hybrid work. Is that not only are the people distributed and they're using whatever devices kind of that suit them, but they're going back and forth to the office, and you have and the applications are equally distributed. So you have the remote and work from home people, but you got the applications that are using components from other software. So you might have like Salesforce, and it's connecting to SAP, and this connects to a private app, and then there's many different host names all over the world for that. And the problem is, in this case, you're not going to be able to put an APM tool on the hosting side, especially if you're not even hosting the solution yourself because it's SaaS. And on the endpoint, I mean, it's really hard to put in a Gigamon in my house, right? So you got to start thinking about there's got to be a better way to do this, and that's what digital experience monitoring was about. Is if you're going to take action across that complex mess of stuff that's hosting your applications, and you want to really know where to focus, it's a different kind of solution you need than one where you're going to get into the detailed analysis of a particular application, like voice streams or application response times. You have to kind of solve a different problem, which is like, where is this originating from, and where can my IT teams like start working on this within a few minutes? I don't want to spend days correlating tools manually. And the fun thing is, digital experience is the ultimate governance of what to do, right? Because you might have like the worst Wi-Fi in the world, or you might have like a 2G connection, but if your application is working fine from the end user's perspective for some reason, there's no point putting all your resources to solve that problem, right? And we see the other side where the applications are like terribly performing, and the network is like solid end to end, right? So these paradoxes are what cause significant shift towards a need for a kind of a different solution.
So we've changed where we work from over the past 2 to 3 years. We've changed how we work. We've changed. There's so much that has changed, and I understand how. I've been a performance engineer for 30 years now, so I've watched when we shift performance right, and we started out with APM, right, traditional APM for static infrastructure that was always there. Having that has also changed. It's all dynamic now. So on the back end, I see where observability platforms have had to make a fundamental shift now, and they're gathering way more data. But even with that, I mean, we've got some end user capture with synthetic scripting. We've got real user monitoring, but I still think we are still experiencing these blind spots. And would you agree that's where DEM really comes into play to give you that 360-degree view that we've been wanting for so long?
That's exactly it. If you look at DEM, it's not just one technology. It's really called out to be a number of complementary ways to look at things, right? So you'll take the real user side, be able to monitor that. And you also have to be able to see the real user connectivity side. So what are they actually experiencing from like where I am to where you're hosting the media servers for this particular podcast? What is that path? And from every segment along the way, and then you have to be able to correlate those two together, right? So it's important from a triaging standpoint, from a root cause analysis standpoint, to understand where the bottlenecks are. So you can't do that with one tool alone, and that's why DEM is such a complex space, because it really requires many different perspectives to be correlated together, and then some sort of AI that can make sense of it for you to get that kind of perspective. And the other stuff that's important here is that a DEM solution, in terms of real user monitoring, wouldn't rely on like agents running on your machine, because those will see things from, let's say, the desktop client, those kind of perspectives. But to really get into what the people are using on SaaS, you have to actually look at the transactions that are happening in the browser, right? And things of that nature, you can pull it down through, let's say, an extension in the browser. You could do it through scripting on the host side. But what that allows you to do is take those, rich Chrome dev tools, waterfall diagrams, and all the hosts and everything that's running, and capture it in the browser, and then put that into some sort of sensible ability to score what the users are experiencing.
I mentioned in a broadcast of my other show, the Performance Tour, in a previous episode, that was really bothering me, that we had been gathering all of this information about performance, but yet we're still seeing all these problems in production. And you would think in 2023 we would have it all together. And I was asking at that point, I was asking the CTO of another company, where have we been missing it? Why have we been missing it? Because this is what I've based my whole career on. And I saw this slide that you guys have shared, and it's about these visibility gaps. And it kind of goes along with what you just said. I'm going to bring up this slide, and I'd like for you to talk to it just a little bit. On the right-hand side of this, it talks about these blind spots, and it mentions APM, NPM, and RUM. Can you kind of talk through this and talk about how the current APM and observability solutions may not have all the information that you need, and where to fill in these blind spots?
Sure. Yeah, that's a interesting place to focus a little bit, to put a bit of color around that. And you're looking at what do we mean by the visibility gap? If you go back to some of the reports, Gartner, IDC, about 40% of user reported problems from using this kind of modern infrastructure on the right hand side, like the cloud hosted stuff, the SaaS, 40% is not seen by existing IT visibility tools. And as a result, you get like 2 out of 10 or 4 out of 10 people saying, IT is too slow to respond. It's because they really can't see it. And the gap comes across those traditional tools just because of what we talked about before. The hosting is extremely dynamic, and there's a lot of third-party applications connected in together, right? So it's very rare right now. I think about 80% of applications we're seeing in SaaS or hosted are interconnected with each other, right? They're what they call composable apps. And trying to figure out which of those is misbehaving to the user's degradation side, right, is very difficult. So the APM tools running on the code are good, but the problem is when you're connecting to other applications and you're also distributing that over many hosting locations, and you have CDNs and things delivering them, it gets very murky as to what's going on. The NPM solutions are in probably the worst position now. It's a market that's declining. Analyzing traffic and NetFlow and IPFix and all these different ways of doing that, it's pretty hard to run heuristics on encrypted traffic now. The TLS 1.3 super secure connections, then routing through like a SASE solution that adds their own tunnel on top of it, is getting very hard to see what's going on. And seeing that from the end user perspective is almost impossible if you're not hairpinning through like a corporate secure gateway, right? So NPM has its use for sure still in packet analysis, flow analysis, especially in the private networks or private data centers, but it's really need a totally different approach for that. And the real user monitoring is traditionally, right, you deploy this on the script on the host. The problem with that is you're not getting much information really from the endpoint in some perspectives, right? Where you're not really seeing, let's say, browser performance, the memory that's available, those kind of things correlated with the exact threads and sessions and transactions that you're running through. There's also more platforms now that people are using, mobile devices, Chromebooks, Linux, a lot of stuff where agents aren't easily installed or not supported by all the different run vendors. So you end up kind of sampling what's going on. But when the exec has a problem, I guarantee you it's going to be the one place you can't install an agent. Right?
Interesting. So there are really two Gartner categories that I am really focusing on, that I'm just now really learning about this year. One is digital employee experience, DEX
Mm-hmm.
as they call it at Gartner,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and Lakeside Software is one of my sponsors for the other show, and then there's digital experience monitoring, DEM, and they kind
yeah.
of go hand in hand. But as I was talking to you off camera here, we were talking about the fact that they can work hand in hand and be very complementary. Can you talk about how they work together? That those categories, do they overlap with each other, or how do they work together?
It's a really interesting space for sure. They do intersect, but I don't find them they overlapping too much. So guys like Lakeside very much complementary to, and we see them in a lot of deployments. I'll share a diagram with you that kind of covers those two, and we'll put it up there, Scott, just kind of illustrate how they fit together in the Gartner world. So they've kind of mapped them as a Venn diagram in Gartner, saying these components come together, and it's kind of like at one end of the extreme, you have the user monitoring, or the endpoint monitoring. So you have the unified endpoint monitoring UEM side. At the other extreme, you have the DEX, which is really looking at things like employee engagement. What's their ability to be productive and efficient in what they're trying to do? It's monitoring behavioral characteristics and also relating those to the machine and the endpoint. So where they have the gap that we see the complement is, one is in the SaaS-based applications where you're actually trying to use something that's very hard for them to see from the endpoint perspective, right? That's one area. And the other one is understanding where to go when things go wrong. So they could easily detect with a DEX solution that somebody's having an unproductive experience. But if that unproductive experience is the responsibility of the company, for example, your SASE solution isn't redirecting properly to the closest proxy, you're getting an incredible amount of latency, or if the hosting you have for Jira is like underperforming in a private environment and people are unproductive, then it's not that the employee experience is their fault, right? A lot of people think that DEX is there to monitor how people are doing at home or in the environment and kind of judging them. Are they online all the time? Are they using things properly? But in reality, if you can't show where the problems are coming from, you can't make them more productive. And that's where you need to have the DEM side that goes deeper into the network, deeper into the transactions, and tries to say, you know what, that guy's Wi-Fi at home sucks, so we'll just ask him to upgrade it. It's no point terminating the most valuable employee because it's not his fault, right?
Right.
So they're very complementary. I'd say DEM is more on the IT ops side, net ops side, the guys who need to make things actually work, whereas the DEX side is super critical to understand how your employees' digital health is doing, and are they able to get things done. Right?
Yeah, it sounds like DEM is for technical leaders to understand technical decisions they need to make the experience better. But the other side, DEX, would be IT leaders making decisions about business decisions, about where to take their business, the
Yeah,
future of their
yeah,
business, and where to pivot. And both are really needed. Now, we've talked about a
yeah.
lot of different things that gather a lot of different information, and making sense of all that data is really the core of this. Like, how do we get to the root cause as fast as possible with as
Mm-hmm.
few clicks? And you mentioned AI. Is AI how we get there? Or how do we make sense of all this data?
Yeah, we just take all that and put it in Chat GPT, right? And Scott, it just comes out and tells you
Right.
that
Just go
never
home.
that
Just
easy,
go
right?
home today.
Yeah. No, we come from an industry, unfortunately, that's been talking about AI for way longer than it was even interesting to discuss it, right? And we still haven't seen an awful lot of practical applications coming out of it. I mean, in monitoring, we see things like anomaly detection is kind of table stakes now, right? Seasonality, trending, predictive analytics. But there seems to have been at a certain point, that's as far as we're going to get for a while. The really big problems are kind of correlating those massive multiple data sets, right? And to get to those areas that the swivel chair problem the NetOps guy doesn't want to talk to the IT ops guy because we know the network's to blame, or so they say. And kind of finger pointing stuff has always been an issue. Mm-hmm. But where DEM goes a little deeper is that since it has the perspective of the network, kind of the application, the real user, the transactional experience, and the routes that the network is actually taking, you can start to isolate and correlate those things together. And that's a bit more complex AI. This is where you start to need to get into things like graph database analysis, right? What are the nodes across this whole digital infrastructure that are actually consistently underperforming and correlating with the digital experience that's impacting the user? So it's solving for things from a user perspective first, and it's giving you opportunities to optimize the infrastructure to in a very intelligent way, so that you're doing capital expenditures or optimization exercises are focused on delivering the maximum impact possible for the key business applications that you consider valuable incrementally, right? If you just did one of those optimizations a week, right, you'd probably start to see like an 80-20 kind of benefit within a month. You start to see incredible things that change, right?
Yeah, and I think that the vendors who are able to get you there and visualize it in a way that's very intuitive, the more intuitive it is to get there, theirs will be the leaders of the pack. So kind of last question here about DEM platforms in general, whether it's your platform at Cadiska or any, if somebody's watching this and they're really interested in it, they've kind of been hearing about it, but now they want to know more. If they look at a DEM platform, what should they expect to get out of it as the main features? What should they demand from that platform to make the kind of decisions they need to make from it?
Well, the first thing is you want to really look for a DEM platform that was built for that, right? Because the way I see it, a lot of the APM, NPM guys in the past, like they're trying to build in more DEM functionality, but the truth is, you're taking diverse data sources that have different cardinality, different time sampling. They're not optimized for AI from the onset. It's a very slow querying process to get insight, right? So first thing you want is a platform that's modern enough that you can deploy it in 15 minutes. You can configure it as quickly as any other SaaS application you're used to working with. So it's built natively to solve the problems of these modern applications using the same kind of frameworks. So I wouldn't want to put too much dating on time, but I'd say if anything is older than 3-4 years, they're built on technologies and databases and querying engines and analytics that are probably superseded instantly by the stuff that's available today, right? So you want to be on something modern, extensible, integratable, all those usual buzzwords. The two things I think that are most critical, you want to be able to see any user anywhere, what they're doing and in their context, how they're accessing the applications from an agent-free type environment, because agents are great, but every IT guy I know, I'm sure you'd say the same thing, Scott. It's hell to put more and more agents on the machines. It's impacting performance. We've seen security breaches because of agents. So unless you really, really need one, and if you can't do it another way, I'd say that's an important option to have to roll things out quickly through massive deployment. And I'd say the other thing is to be able to see the real user connectivity, whether it's from a mobile device, from a bring your own device, or it's from something in the office or a server or a cloud location. You want to be able to do that without paying for every single item that you're monitoring, right? You want to be able to just cover everything and see it as, instead of like picking and choosing that if I had to invest, I would cover those 5 stores, these 2 offices, and those 2 employees. This really isn't the way digital experience monitoring is designed. It should be accessible and simple and really give you insight across everything. Otherwise, you might miss one of those critical moments when one of your employees drops that Teams call in the middle of a town hall, right? Those kind of things. You just don't want to be sampling stuff anymore when modern systems can do it easily.
Right. Great answer, by the way. If somebody wants to know more about your platform, where can they go to find out more?
Yeah, Cadiska.com, good place to start. You'll see free trial, something that, of course, you can do in a few minutes and get that up and running. A lot of great webinars, YouTube videos and things you can see for your specific problems, whether you're suffering from Salesforce or Teams or WebEx issues, or you just have SaaS migrations or SD-WAN optimization to perform. There's something for everyone, and that's what DEM tools are good at, right? They typically can cover those main use cases or a subset of them, and easy to start with. A couple of minutes, we'll get some insight into what's going on.
Awesome. Sounds great. You've given me another idea for a show. I think we should have a whole panel about agent versus agentless. And I can see the debate between, but I see the pros and cons of both, but that would be a great thing to talk about.
No, it's a good topic.
Thanks so much for being on the show today, Scott. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks for everyone for joining us.
So what do you think? Should we have an episode dedicated to agent versus agentless? I can definitely see where agentless would be the way to go, to be as least intrusive as possible, but to get the depth that you need, you could argue that you're only going to be able to get that from an installed agent. I'm kind of on the fence depending on the situation. What about you? Maybe we have an episode about that. What do you think about digital experience monitoring? Is it just a bunch of more talk? Is it just another observability platform, or is there actually more to it? I'd like to know what you think. You can find me online on many of the social platforms. Just scan that QR code that takes you to my bio with several links of how to get in touch with me, or just be lazy and send me an email to my email address at heyscott@smcjournal.com. Would love to hear what you think about this content. And if you do like this content, would be great if you liked this video and subscribe to my channel. There's the URL for it, or scan the QR code to take you right to the channel. And it'll be great if you gave me a like, and that really helps me determine what to do about this show going forward. So until the next episode of the SMC Journal podcast, this is Scott Moore saying thanks again for watching. We'll see you. Bye-bye.